Hi everybody, this is Mrs. Stickler. I'm going to help you today with a little bit of your homework. These two assignments that we started in class are homework. I'm going to go ahead and do exactly what we did there. I'm going to put my template right here, and this, you'll notice, is my 45-45-90 page. Now I used the letter S. See, these are the sides that are the same length. So this is an S, and this is an S. And this hypotenuse is the S times the square root of 2. So whatever your side is times the square root of the 2 is the hypotenuse. So let's go over here and let's look at problem number 1. Now, looking at this problem, I want to identify my right angle. Okay, that helps me identify where my hypotenuse is. Now my hypotenuse over here is S square roots of 2. So I'm going to put that on this. I'm just going to put the template straight down right on top of the problem I'm going to be doing. Now I want to identify the legs that are congruent in this right isosceles, because remember, if this is 45, this is 45, so the base angles are congruent. That means these legs are congruent. So now what do I do? Well, I want to look at the triangle that has the actual problem on it, and I want to identify where did they give me information. Well, they told me right here that this is y. Well, that's a variable. And this is x, and that's a variable. But up here, 4 square roots of 2 is a number. And I also notice here that in my template, it tells me s square roots of 2 is that hypotenuse, and this is the hypotenuse. So I know that these two things are equal. Well, some of you may see that right there, I know s is in the same position as 4. And then we have a radical of 2 and a radical of 2. So that kind of looks like s is 4, and you would be right. So, but I want to show you mathematically why that is. To get s by itself, I divide by the radical of 2 on both sides. Now, radical 2 over radical 2, or the root 2 over the root 2, is 1, because anything over itself is 1. So that means I have 1s equal to, over here I have radical of 2 over radical of 2. Once again, that's 1. So I have 4 times 1, so that gives me just 4. So that's mathematically why this s is 4 and this s is 4. Now I want to jump over and let's do number 2 as well. In number 2, let's just put our template straight down. I find my hypotenuse, and I know that's going to be opposite this right angle. So I know, looking over here, the hypotenuse is always s root 2. I do that every single time. I always find the hypotenuse first. Then I know the other two sides are going to be congruent. So looking at this problem, I'm going to start at the hypotenuse now, and there's an x. Well, x is a variable. I don't know what it is. Y is variable. I don't know what that is. And then we have 8. I know what 8 is, and now I have s equal to 8. So that means everywhere I have an s in my template, I'm going to replace that s with 8. So here, s equals 8. And here, I'm going to replace this s, and I'm going to get 8 radical 2, or 8 root 2. That's a number, but I don't want the decimals involved with that, so I'm just going to leave it as 8 root 2. Now I'm going to look down here. I'm looking for a problem that's a little bit more difficult. I think 3 you might think is a little bit more difficult. And some of you are automatically going to look at this and you're going to see this 4 root 2 and you're going to think that's the hypotenuse. But I want you to look and find that right angle. There's my right angle. And I know my hypotenuse has to be opposite of that. So is this opposite of that? No, it's not. I know that that hypotenuse is s root 2, and that hypotenuse of this triangle is right here, s root 2. Which makes these two sides s and s. Well, if this is s, I know this is s, so that's 4 root 2. But now I'm stumped, because how am I going to put that in here for s? It's two things. Well, when we have two things that go in, we use parentheses. So would you guys agree that we said that is s? So I'm just going to substitute that in there for s. Then I'm going to multiply that by root 2. Those of you that can't not remember the radicals are multiplied together. There's number 1 in front of that radical. Well, 4 times that invisible 1 is going to give me 4. And the radical of 2, or the root 2 times root 2, is the root 4. Now that's perfect square. 4 is a perfect square, and it's under my radical. sign, so I know that that actually equals 2 outside of the radical. So whenever you take something, a perfect square, and it comes out of the radical, we have to multiply it by any number in front. So we're going to multiply 4 times 2, which equals 8. X is 8. Now, let's look here at 5. I think 5 is the next other type of problem you're going to see, and some of you are going to feel like that's kind of difficult. But before I do anything, first thing I want to do is identify that right angle, and I want to put my hypotenuse measure down here. So this is s root 2, and this is s, and this is s. Now the pattern of this problem is going to be the same anytime you have a whole number on the hypotenuse. So I know that 5 is equal to the s times the root 2. Now I know these both look like 5s, but that's an s, not a 5. So what do? Well, I want s to be by itself. In order to make that happen, I'm going to have to divide by the root of 2. So this is equal to 1. Notice I made that into a big 1. So I have an s by itself over here. I'm trying to make my s really look like an s so you don't get confused. And that equals 5 over the root 2. Now we cannot have an irrational or a radical number there in the bottom. Not irrational, radical number. So I've got to get it out of the bottom. And if you think back to algebra, or even before that when you had to make a common denominator, you often would multiply by that denominator. Well, that's what we're going to do here. But this number right here has to be equal to 1. So what can I put on top that would make this 1? Well, another radical of 2, or root 2. Now we multiply across. So 5 times the square root of 2 is 5 root 2. And the square root of 2 times the square root of 2 is root 4. What is root 4? Well, it's 2. Notice.
Miss Argentary, could you please dial 3800? Miss Argentary, please dial 3800.
Sorry about that interruption. But notice right here, this 5 over 2 is a fraction. We cannot reduce that fraction. If it were an even number, I could simplify it. But in this case, it's an odd number, and 2 does not ever divide into an odd number. So my answer is actually this. S is going to equal 5 cut in half times the square root of 2. And that's the pattern you want to look for. Let me give you another one here, and I'll show you the shortcut. Let's say this side were 20. I would know I cut it in half and multiply times the square root of 2. Well, 20 cut in half is 10. So I would know in the case where 20 is a hypotenuse that each of the legs would have to be 10 times the square root of 2 on both sides. That's the pattern you want to look for there. Now those are all I'm going to do on this front page, and frankly, you probably did most of those in class, so I didn't help you much on your homework, but I think listening to that might help you understand it. Now let's look at the second page. We didn't get nearly as much time on the 30, 60, 90 triangles, so I'd like to spend just a few minutes on them. Now in this problem, I'm always going to slap my template down here on that page so I can remember. I know I've got a right angle, I have a 30-degree angle, and a 60-degree angle. Across from my 30-degree angle is my L, my base unit. Everything else relates back to that little side, the little leg. I know that the hypotenuse is 2L. And I know that the longer leg, the side across from the 60 angle, is the little leg times the root of 3. I like to remember it's root 3 because I have a 30, 60, 90 triangle. I have 3 different angle measures, and so the 3 kind of corresponds with that idea that it's 3 different angle measures. Got an itch in my eye, sorry. So I'm going to always identify the 30-degree angle and the side opposite of that first. So let's jump over here to problem 1. In this problem, notice that I have 60 and 90 marked. Well, that means this is my 30-degree angle. That means across from that side is my little leg. So now I can identify where all the other pieces go. My hypotenuse, which is across from the right angle, is 2 times my little leg. And the side across from the 60-degree angle is the little leg times the root of 3. Now, when I look at this problem, I notice I have a U here on the hypotenuse. I notice I have a V on the little leg. But over here on the longer leg, I just have the radical of 3. What number is in front of that? Well, isn't there a number 1 in front of that? Yes, there is. So that's my L. So I'm going to come and plug that in over here. That's 1. And this is 2 times 1, which equals 2. So that's the length of U. That equals U. And 1 equals the letter V. Okay, let's jump over here to my next one. This is number 2. Once again, where's my 30-degree angle? Well, here's 60. That means this is my 30. And which means this value is my little leg. Now, before you panic seeing that radical sign, don't look at that yet. Also label all the other sides. So I know across from the right angle, this is 2L, 2 times the little leg. And this side opposite of the 60-degree angle is the little leg times the square root of 3. Don't panic about that radical. It's just a number. So let's plug that in for all of our L's. And I'm going to do this one first. I know I have 2 times 2 radical 3, or 2 root 3. 2 times 2, I just multiply the whole numbers. This side is 4 radical 3, or 4 root 3. Now I'm going to plug it in here. For the L, I have 2 square root 3 times the root of 3. We multiply our radicals here. So I have 2 root 9. What is the root of 9? Well, that's 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. So I know Y is 6, and X is 4 root 3. I'm looking for one in particular right now, and I want to come down and do, let's do this one, number 5. Notice, just put our template down. My 30-degree angle, that's my L. Across from my 90-degree angle, that's 2L. That leaves this as the L root 3. So I know that 5 equals L root 3. I want to find out what L is, so I've got to divide by the root of 3. So L equals 5 root 3. That radical's in the bottom again, and that's a big no-no. Want to get that out. So we're going to multiply by root 3 over root 3. So I get 5 root 3 over the root of 9, which is 3. So just like before in the 45, 45, 90 triangle, we know that this is my pattern. I take that whole number, divide it by 3, multiply by the root of 3, and that's what I'm going to get. So let me give you another number that you'll see will come out nice and even. Let's say instead of 5, and I'll use a different color here, instead of 5, I make this 15. Well, according to my pattern, if I divide by 3 and multiply by the root of 3, what is that other side going to be? My leg would then be, well, 15 divided by 3 is 5, so it would be 5 root 3. And that would be what the leg is. Then the hypotenuse would be 2 times that, or 10 root 3. Hope that